So I was at a truck show in Wisconsin last week, and I was talking to a fleet owner, and he has a dedicated contract. And this, I think, supports what you're seeing, and that is in dedicated in particular, a lot of churn. He's had an account for about 20 years, which is to the point where he has keys to unload during the night, to unload the refrigerated freight. So it's fairly specialized, strong partnership. 20 years they've been doing this work. They've just been undercut by another carrier substantially to get that work away from them. So this is the market we're in, and that kind of has been borne out by the decreasing rates that we're seeing based on recent RFPs, where carriers are lowering their rates to maintain volume. But at what point do you think, Chris, we get to levels of unsustainability? And I think sort of where I'm going with this is you and I were at FreightWaves back in 2019. If you remember that period, that second quarter of 2019, we saw record levels of bankruptcies. I think this year has some of those ingredients. I don't know that we'll get there. So maybe if there's complete demand destruction, but it kind of feels like we're treading water. And I think you're right. Those that can survive and keep costs down to get through this year. I don't know. I sort of go between pessimism and optimism here. I worry about the worst case scenario coming true, which is what we saw in 2019. What are your thoughts on how this market lands this year?
Yeah, I think the key driver of potentially improvement, again, are the equipment lenders. So they're sitting on debt, a lot of debt that is basically uncollectible. They know it, the market knows it, the carriers know it, and there's a significant amount of the population from a percentage perspective that are essentially walking dead. So regardless of what occurs, whether there's a run up 3 years from now or a year from now, they don't have the funds, nor will they have the funds to repay that debt. So I think what you'll see is one lender, taking the hit, making a massive adjustment on their quarterly earnings, on their balance sheet. So taking that hit, and then you'll see a string of other lenders willing to do the same, get it off their balance sheet. And as a result, obviously you don't want to see people fail. You don't want to see job losses, but in order for this market to get back to a sustainable level where revenue is covering costs and having a small amount of profit, you need a mass exit of carriers, large and small. So there's large carriers that are walking dead and micro carriers that are walking dead. It's just, the lenders have to take action.
Wow. That's incredibly insightful. I hadn't thought about the magnitude of that, Chris.